till it's perfect.
Got it. Okay. Let me bring my PowerPoint up. Sarah was very helpful as we were just making sure we had this as wired as we could be. Again, it certainly keeps one humble. There's no doubt about it. Slideshow mode. Okay. So now, and what I need to do, I need to get you up. Do you see my PowerPoint?
No, I do not yet.
You do not. Okay, hold on a second. I'm going to end the show. I'm going to go back to this. I'm going to go back up here. Okay, is that better? Do you see it now?
I do see it now. Yes.
Okay, so let me go to full slideshow mode. Slideshow mode, which is should be right there. Okay, very good. This is encouraging. So we are quasi set, right? I mean, you've got it in front of you, correct?
Yes. Let me just see what happened.
A problem?
No, I lost the waiting room. No problem. I can figure it out. Oh, there they are. I got them.
Okay. Oh, you got people back, huh?
I have them back. Wasn't sure what.
Hold
I'm going to wait till the waiting room has everyone in it right at noon.
That's fine. You are screen sharing. You know, part of it, any academic and presenter, that you're always tweaking. I tweaked it a little bit more this morning because I had a number of questions, but oftentimes I'll do this in person and it really lends itself to great discussion. It's a little bit more challenging virtually because you want to be sensitive to the dynamics. So we're going to more front end load the 7 big ideas, and then we'll have hopefully some time really at the end for people to look at them and comment on the ones that they really think are relevant to them and are most timely. I think her ideals, which is part of the power of Frances, are just really timeless. They're just amazingly insightful, even though we're going through so many challenges. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Sounds perfectly clear.
Okay, volume good.
Okay.
Yeah, I tell you what, just feel free to handle the waiting. You're like somebody at a doctor's office handling it's lining up out the hall, down the hall, which would be great. Okay. How's the morning going so far?
It's good. I had one session at 10 and then I had a break at 11. Then I have this session and then another one at 1.
I got you. Okay. Yeah, Sarah did a nice job on the intro and the welcome.
Yes, I thought so too. We had 200 people register, which for a virtual setting is great.
Yeah. And how many countries do you have represented today?
28.
28 countries. I mean, that's amazing. That speaks to Frances. And, I remember when we were working on this, we started out with an idea focused on the University of Pittsburgh and student leadership. And she said, Lee, that's an interesting idea, but if it involves me, it's got to be global. I went, dang. I said, I'm not in charge of the world, but let's give it a whirl.
She's a big thinker, right?
Oh my gosh, she will blow your mind. I mean, you think about all the big thinkers and the power that they have, and she's always so humble. I mean, she's just incredible.
Yeah, there's a real lesson in the humility there.
Yeah, and I joke that she's like MasterCard accepted everywhere. I mean, I've seen her in lots of different circles, and it just boggles my mind how humbly people see her and how they respond to her, and she's just always so gracious.
Yeah. So it is 11:59, and we have 21 people in the waiting room.
Okay.
So if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and start letting them in.
Sure, that's fine.
All right. Hello, welcome as you're joining us. We will get started in just 1 minute. All right, good afternoon. It is 12:01, and so it is time to start our presentation. We do still have people joining us, and I'll just keep adding them from the waiting room with hopefully minimal disruptions. We do ask that everyone is muted, and we will go ahead and get started. Hello, my name is Summer Rothrock. I serve as the director in the Office of Cross-Cultural and Leadership Development at the University of Pittsburgh in the Division of Student Affairs, and I use she, her, hers pronouns. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this Hesselbein Global Academy virtual summit session entitled Leadership Lessons from Frances Hesselbein, aka Yoda, during the past 25 plus years. Please note that this session is being recorded. Noted management expert Jim Collins, in the foreword of Frances Hesselbein's autobiography, describes Frances as the Yoda of Star Wars fame, dispensing wisdom to a gathering of generals, Jedi Knights. This interactive session will highlight a number of important leadership insights from Frances Hesselbein. Frances talks about the importance of developing a common language, leading to a common vision, resulting in a common ground. Her work inspires leaders around the world. Our presenter for this session is Dr. Lee Patouillet. Dr. Lee Patouillet collaborated with Frances Hesselbein and other Pitt leaders in creating the Frances Hesselbein Global Leadership Academy. Dr. Patouillet and Frances Hesselbein first met in 1993, and she continues to serve as one of his primary mentors. Frances Hesselbein's ideas profoundly impacted Dr. Patouillet's work during his 40-plus year career in higher education administration at 4 major universities and throughout his consulting practice. He is humbled and honored to be given the opportunity to share some of the most important lessons learned from one of this country's greatest thought leaders. Thank you so much. You should be able to see Dr. Patouillet's presentation. Please feel free to use the chat. And Dr. Patouillet, the virtual stage is all yours.
Summer, thank you very much for those kind words. And let me also add my welcome to all those. Already see a number of dear friends online, which is always encouraging, and new friends that I'll get to meet. It's special to talk about Frances. I spent some time on YouTube this morning looking at some of my favorite Frances Hesselbein interviews, and she continues to inspire. So my intent for our time together is to share some key timeless leadership lessons from Frances with the hope that these big ideas will help you as much as they've helped me. What we find during this time of great transition is that these principles are still very timely today. A couple more ground rules we have for today. As you heard, Summer will be monitoring the chat room. Thank you, Summer, for doing that. If you'd like to comment on something during the session, please unmute your microphone, otherwise keep it muted. And my focus is going to be at the end is to kind of tee up these 7 big ideas and give us some time to really talk and reflect on these 7 big ideas. There are actually, when you talk about Francis, there's probably 50. So unless you want to spend a week talking about this, which I'm open for, as long as I'm not taking care of 3 wonderful grandchildren, and let me know, we can find a time to do that. And then if we don't get to all your questions, you'll see my contact information. And please send me an email that or give me a call. Okay, on with the show. Okay, as we've heard, the title is Leadership Lessons from Francis Hesselbein, aka Yoda, during the past 25 plus years. You heard from Summer that I've known Francis for almost 30 years.
Click anywhere.
She is one of the most distinguished graduates from the University of Pittsburgh, and she's absolutely amazing. And so I did have the honor of serving as executive director of the association for 17 years. And let me add my thanks to Sam Zacharias, who's online, Keith Schaefer, many other people, Mark Nordenberg, who worked with me and Francis to create this whole program. I will share in the spirit of transparency. Oh my goodness, the guru is here. She's watching me. So now the pressure is on. If I pass out, then you'll know that the pressure got to me. So it's not every day that I get to see my mentor live and in person. So this is pretty exciting. But we talked about this originally as an idea to endow some student leadership programs at the University of Pittsburgh. But if you know Frances, she's a big thinker. And she said, Lee, that sounds interesting, but we really need to be global. I said, Frances, global? I'm not in charge of the world. You are. So she said, it's got to be global. I said, okay, Frances, let's go. So this was really quite an experience. Now, I've never starred in a Star Wars movie, but my joy is learning from the present day Yoda, also named as Francis Hesselbein. And here's a little clip, which I hope you enjoy. Hopefully this and technology, there you go.
Part of what you would see, particularly in the role of Yoda and Obi-Wan Kenobi, there was a servant leadership quality that I serve others a greater good. That servant leadership is part of that. And you see that today in the world of corporations around the world. The leaders view themselves as servants, serving others in a greater good. I think you also see the transformational leadership. How can the resistance and the rebellion take on the evil emperor and the empire to transform it so people can realize their greatness and live in freedom and liberty to achieve the human dignity of who they are. So I see elements of servant leadership and transformational leadership, but I also saw the innovation and risk-taking you find in Han Solo. I mean, his name, Han Solo, tells you everything, doesn't it? But this notion of him willing to take risks, calculated risks, but he would always engage and inspire others to follow him, whether it be Chewbacca, he was always working with Chewbacca, or when Luke at the end of episode 4, together, working, collaborating, that sort of risk-taking innovation that you see as part of leadership, sometimes challenging the boundaries, letting the force guiding you. But I think that the servant leadership and the transformational leadership are key leadership lessons that one's take away from Star Wars movies.
We heard from Summers' introduction about in Francis's autobiography, Jim Collins, who wrote the foreword and also the author of Good to Great, talked about as Francis talked, the general sat utterly riveted for 2 hours. Francis held a commanding presence like Yoda, dispensing wisdom to a gathering of Jedi Knights. What I didn't put in this slide, after her presentation, all these big generals end up going, hoo-yah! And I can imagine that happening down at Fort Bragg, but Francis is smiling, which is a good sign. So probably brings back a lot of memories. We're going to share today, as I said, there's many ideas, but to serve is to live, which is really Francis's mantra. And she talks a lot about it's an honor and a privilege to serve. And that's a mindset. When you read Jim Collins's books and his foreword about Francis, he would ask Francis about, how do you deal with these big challenges? And she says, the bigger the challenge, the better. And that gives her a lot of energy. And Francis has amazing energy. But the serve is to live, which is very, very important. Leadership is a matter of how to be, not how to do. And I think that's an important concept. And I was doing some more research. One of her dear colleagues, Warren Bennis, wrote, "Managers do things right and leaders do the right thing." So you see some similarities here on those concepts. But how do you learn to be a leader? And part of it for me is finding great mentors. And I think we all need to be looking at mentors on how we can get better and just watch them and follow. And another thought that Francis talks about is that you can be a leader at any level of the organization. Sometimes people think, okay, I'll wait till I'm the president, I'll wait till I'm the vice president. But the point is, you can be a leader really anywhere in the organization. We could talk more about our concept of leadership and circular leadership, which is actually a concept adopted by Apple. I was reading a Fortune magazine article one day, and it was like 15 years after Francis described this to the New York Times. And I'm thinking, I know where they read this information from. Francis gave it to them. So that's interesting. There's need for a common language, which leads to a common vision, which results in common ground. Taylor Thomas, one of my former staff members at Tennessee, he could probably give this talk. He heard this a lot. And when I was a consultant, I would work with a lot of college presidents and other administrators. And sometimes it was a common language, sometimes it was not. In one case, I remember the president said a particular part of the university should be doing A. When I talked to the head of that unit, they said, "That's crazy. That's not my job." Well, it shows you that you have a disconnect. Is there a common language? And I know that today we have 28 countries represented, and we may have a different language, or we may speak the same language, but the key is to think about the nuances of that language. And then people talk about the need for common ground. And to me, I think Francis speaks to two issues here. We need a common language first, and then talk about common vision. Where are we going? Then we can talk about common ground. And oftentimes in organizations, this is the part that breaks down. Number 4, organizations should be mission-focused, values-based, and demographics-driven. This is one that I have really embraced. And mission is why we do what we do. It's our purpose. Our values are what we believe, what we care about. And then demographics-driven is looking at our audience, and that's changing all the time. Francis reminds me that our mission should be looked at every couple of years. Also, Peter Drucker talked about it being short and fitting on the front of a t-shirt. And keep in mind that you have to be able to read the t-shirt, not just get a bunch of words on it, but short, concise, powerful concepts, and then people rally around the mission. Now, you can see from my work at the University of Tennessee, and you think Francis inspired me here? Exactly right. This is our mission, values of excellence, innovation, traditions, inclusion, accountability, and partnership, and vision, and then strategic directions. Francis said you should have no more than 5 or 6, otherwise you lose your focus. So this is a very practical example of how her work helps to shape what we do. Really, at the end of the day, as leaders, we're trying to get everybody in the same boat, rowing in the same direction, which is not always easy, but these are some of the tools on how to do it. Managing for the mission, manage for innovation, and manage for diversity. There's a lot here. So when you think about that, very important. And Francis, as we heard earlier, received the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1998, the highest civilian honor. Her work was really focused on being a pioneer for women, volunteerism, diversity, and opportunity. And what's amazing is you would think after being the head of the Girl Scouts that she would, quote, take it easy. That was not the case. She became president and CEO of the Peter Drucker Foundation for Nonprofit Management and continues to do things really just all over the world. So, and for those people who are not that familiar with her work, I would encourage you to read some of her books. You'll actually see some of her books right here. There's about 8 of them. Those are just some of her 27 books, but they're really quite insightful. And you can find a lot of resources, some of the interviews she's done online. Let me tell you a little funny story, which I just thought I would throw out. When I worked at the University of Florida, Frances was kind enough to do a recap of one of her books with my staff. And so at the end of our hour session, she said, Lee, I would love to spend more time with you, but I have to go to the Four Seasons and have lunch with the Dalai Lama. I said, well, I have to have lunch with Lee at Wendy's. So that was one of my favorite Frances Hesselbein story. But she wasn't saying it to gloat, but just this is just Frances being in the moment and people wanting to be around Frances. And I could tell you hundreds of stories about my dear friend. When you look at us, can they find themselves? Very important concept. And in fact, let's see, the U.S. Army embraced this concept a few years ago in their ad campaign. We're about to get to the point where I want to hear from all of you. She reminds us that organizations exist to make people's strengths effective and their weaknesses irrelevant. And this is the work of effective leaders. So just to think about that, for the people you work with, is there an opportunity through strength finders or some other tool to understand people's strengths and then what are some of their weaknesses? And our job as leaders is make those weaknesses irrelevant. So these are the 7 of many. Again, it was hard to narrow it down. But what is your favorite Hesselbein big idea? I'm going to pause at this point, and you can unmute your microphone, and I hope to hear from some of my esteemed colleagues throughout the globe. There's a lot here. I shared it quickly, but with the hope that we really have more time for a dialogue, which is more fun than just listening to me. Thoughts, comments? In summer, you'll share things in the chat room too if you see things.
I will, and if you're not ready to unmute, just go ahead and pop it into the chat. We have one from Harris Witzel Consulting. To serve is to love is my favorite. It is a value of mine and serves to motivate me daily.
Great point. Just when you think that service is really core to why we live. And I was talking to a dear friend of mine who was working with retired CEOs. And as they retired, they were thinking, okay, what do I get to do now? And they found one of their voids was they didn't have enough opportunities to serve. So we have to move beyond ourselves. And so that's when we find some of the greatest joy. So I think that's a great point. But that's why I put it number 1. It's also her mantra. But that really is core. And again, all of you are servant leaders today. And we're all looking to find ways to strengthen those skill sets.
Lee, we have another comment from Stacy that says that one sheet that you created inspired by Frances is excellent. The mission, values, vision, etc. So that work and practice is obviously hitting and ringing true.
Yeah, it's true. Either as a full-time college administrator or consultant, I think I've facilitated 20 strategic plans. So I'm kind of a strategic plan person. And we found that was just essential. And you really have to work with the group to make sure that you're focusing on those things. And then values are very important about what we believe, how we treat each other, and then what we embrace. So that's, those are not just words, but they are concepts, which are, and then also demographics. During Frances's tenure as the president and CEO of Girl Scouts USA, it became much more diverse. So Frances knew about changing demographic trends. And so I think that was one of the strengths. And what's also interesting about her work is she wanted to make sure that the organization was stronger once she left that role. And she did that because it had suffered 8 years of declining enrollment prior to Frances taking over. So again, these are concepts really grounded in her work.
We also have a participant unmuted. Neil, if you'd like to join the conversation.
Hi, Neil.
Hi. Hey, Lee. Hey, Francis. Can you see this circular diagram that Francis helped me create? After Lee introduced me, I spent a full day with Admiral David Brewer and myself, and we created this mission. And Francis, to this day, it motivates me, and it's to build stronger families now and for generations. And we didn't go hierarchical in a top-down approach. Everything was circular, and we're going to create the To-Be family. And Francis and Lee, if you only knew what's about to happen with this program, we've got some big organization that potentially could take it globally. So keep us in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you for the motivation. I'm here to serve and to live. Thanks to you, Francis and Lee.
Thank you, Neil. It's other thoughts from the group?
We also see that the one and only Francis is unmuted. If
Oh, hello, my dear friend.
Francis, can you say hello?
Hello.
Hello. Dee, can you hear him? Hear her?
Yes, yes,
Oh,
we
good.
can hear
I'm
Francis.
sorry. Yeah. I choose your program for her.
Okay. Thank you.
She was nodding a lot when you making a presentation.
Yeah, I could see those smiles and nods, which was quite reaffirming. Francis, do you want to comment on anything that I've said, or more importantly, what I didn't say, which I should have said?
Do you want to have a comment? You want to say anything?
Oh, I am so fascinated that you selected ideas that I live by. You call them selected big ideas. Well, I live by these to serve and to live. Leadership is a matter of how to be, not how to do.
Exactly. That's B. I made it. Thank you, Francis.
we also have some great reflections in the chat, Lee, if you don't mind, I'll read some.
Sure.
Absolutely. Alexander says, I do love the number 7, I believe from your one sheet from the University of Tennessee, because it emphasizes the big idea number 7, I'm sorry, because it emphasizes the diversity and inclusion we have today in our world that's creating equity so everybody can have the same opportunities no matter their weaknesses, and also the possibility to progress and boost their potential to the maximum.
Great comment.
Yeah, Harris
Very
Witzel
true.
Consulting says Francis's big ideas are like a quilt to me. They hold purpose and value to be at my highest and best every day. Well, that's a beautiful analogy. Kavya says developing a style of leadership that really embraces everyone's individual strengths in a way that still promotes harmony and collaboration is a skill I believe is essential for innovative leadership. And then one of our last comments from Pravna says, I love big idea number 6. It questions whether the obstacle in your way has as much determination and influence to prevent you from achieving something as you do, almost as if you're looking in a mirror. Evaluating your own decisions and abilities is part of leadership that is essential to your skill set. Well, there are some good ideas floating in this chat.
Boy, they are strong, and they really are. And, when you think about how intentional we need to be about number 6, when you look at us, can you see yourself? What does your leadership team look like? Who is portrayed in your publications? And are those publications really representative of your organization? Or is that disproportionate? And trying to be true to yourself and trying to embrace the diversity of ideas, because oftentimes some of the best ideas will come from other folks that are on the front line. And I think welcoming different perspectives. And so challenging ourselves to get better. And just like Frances did when we talked about this original idea, and I said, Frances, that's a big idea. But what she did is she brought together leaders really from all over the world to have a conversation about what this program looks like. And that 5-day summit really reflects that. And there's that service learning component to it. It's a fabulous program. And I applaud the University of Pittsburgh, Summer and Sarah and all those people involved in it. It's really quite outstanding. And it's 5 days to change your life. But these are powerful concepts. And again, it's these are 7 ideas, but they're all so big. And I just find that, and they help drive my thinking every day about, what I should be doing and how I should be proceeding. We have a few more minutes. I'm going to go to the next slide, but feel free to continue to share. Think about lightsabers and about Yoda in the movies. And I think with Frances, although like Yoda, small in stature, but huge in terms of its power and ideals. So again, don't be focused on what you don't have, but focus on what you have and kind of the role you can play, and really be committed to continuous learning. And I think there's so many things that are available now online. And you can just really sharpen your skills. Stephen Covey talked about sharpening your saw. And Frances was always helping us think about sharpening one's saw and not being, complacent. That's why she talks about every 2 years relooking at the mission and make sure it's still relevant and it still is working. So let's continue if we can with the discussion and Q&A. I'll have my contact information at the end and be glad to share some closing thoughts. But again, I want to hear from all of you what you're thinking. So as we build this global community of Hesselbein fellows and scholars. Don't be bashful. So I know a number of you, and I know that bashful is not a descriptor. Summer, would you mind sharing, and we didn't talk about this in advance, but in your key role as the director for your unit, can you reflect on some of these ideas and how you see those at work in the field of student leadership?
Absolutely. So I think it's so interesting to know that we have been running the academy, and our colleague friends in Gispia have the forum over there in Gispia, and so that the legacy and the lessons that we've learned from Frances throughout the amazing years of leadership and these 7 big ideas. I think I can see them every day. I can see them in the work that Student Affairs does to provide the best collegiate experience in the world. And that means that we're able to do that on that individual basis, that we're able to create messages and experiences that can be experienced and valued by everyone, but that also feel personal, that they're driven by data, but they're also people driven. They're driven by the experiences that we're able to provide for our students, for our Pitt community members, for our alumni, and importantly for us at the Academy, for all of our global participants, that they become members of our University of Pittsburgh family, I think is really indicative of that work in embracing the people in leadership, not just the ideas, but that you really are bringing out the best in everyone by creating that space for people to learn what it means for them to serve.
Great points. Thank you for sharing those. Sam Zacharias, do you have any thoughts? I see you there.
Actually, Lee, thank you for being on here. And I'm so excited to see Frances. She looks terrific, and we're very fortunate. And Lee, your presentation is perfect. So thank you.
Thank you for those kind words. Well, it's really just Frances's work. I'm just a messenger. That's all. So, you know, she, for those who know me, since 1993, I never gave a presentation without at least one Frances Hesselbein quote. And Frances was kind enough in 2000 to attend a conference which I co-chaired with my colleague from UCLA. And she spent a half day with us. The focus is when the roll is called in 2010. So it's really a 10-year forward-looking view. It was amazing how perceptive she was on those issues. So again, you know, the work of Peter Drucker really has helped her and helped her thinking. But then when Jim Collins and, you know, Alan Mulally, the former president of Ford, these are all mentees of Frances and have been impacted by her. Speaking of Jim Collins, in the first year of the summit, I remember Frances telling me she was talking to Jim Collins, who's a very sought after consultant speaker. And Jim said, Frances, would you do me the honor of letting me be the first speaker at the Hesselbein Summit? And she said, oh, Jim, that would be so nice. And so Jim came out and spent a day with us. And that was quite just an opportunity. Again, I hope the students appreciate what they have in the wisdom of Frances. Sometimes that you have to live a little bit longer or perhaps reflect more, but the power of that is amazing. And also the second year we had Marshall Goldsmith, we've had Simon Sinek, we've had a number of really outstanding thought leaders, which is important to keep in mind. And, you know, I would never have had those opportunities had it not been for Frances. You know, again, thank you to my dear mentor and colleague, and which is great. Okay. Do we have some additional thoughts in the few minutes we have remaining?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lori Harris. I'm really not Harris White Cell Consulting. I can't get that changed, and I apologize. I have a question for Lee and for Frances. So these big ideas are beyond ideas. They are truly values. And so leading others and modeling these values is one thing, but motivating and influencing others into, if in fact these values aren't being currently exhibited in an organization, and being able to influence that over time. What do you recommend are maybe top 3 things to do as a leader to help influence others and support others through that journey?
Frances, would you like to comment?
Yes.
Well, what do you think, Frances? How do you motivate other people?
You. I want to hear you.
Oh, you want to hear me?
Yes.
I tell you what, this is Yoda checking out Luke, young Skywalker, to see how well I've learned the laser. Great question. You know, it's not a top-down situation, and I think that's why strategic planning is important. And did you really talk seriously about those values, whether you do a dot activity and then you work on common language? You talk about what does that mean? And what does it mean to be inclusive? What does it mean to focus in on excellence? And how do we, you know, in a civil way, talk about these issues and talk about what's working and what's not? And clearly it's an important concept, but you're right. I mean, I've seen too many cases where, well, one, people really don't know what the mission and values are. I was doing a consulting job at a school in the SEC, and I said, this looks quite interesting. I said, how does it tie into the goals and needs of the university? They went, that's a great question. We never asked them, but that's their client. What seems so simple is not simple, okay? So it's stepping back and thinking about where are the disconnects, and then how to have that conversation. Another client, this is more in the field of alumni and legislative relations. So I was talking to the head of their system, and they said the one thing this organization is doing that's driving me crazy, costing me tens of millions of dollars, is their alumni legislative advocacy program. And then an hour later, I'm meeting with the alumni leadership. They said, oh, our marquee program is our alumni legislative advocacy program. I said, well, we got a disconnect. I said, you and the president need to have a conversation. Again, you don't want to betray the trust, but I think it's important, really, number 3 ties into this: common language, common vision, common ground. You need to address those before you can get into the mission-focused, values-based, and demographics-driven. And then really asking people, what do they mean by these words? And can you give us some examples? And then lifting up as a staff those people that are exhibiting those types of behaviors. Again, focusing on people's strengths, not their weaknesses. Those are some initial thoughts. Francis, feel free to add your perspective, my dear friend. You want to add anything, Francis?
What?
Do you want to add anything?
Coming in what way?
Okay. Did I explain or did I respond to the question okay?
How would you answer that?
I would answer that was really focused on common language, common vision, and common ground about how to get everybody on the same page, because you need to do that before you can talk to values. It's important to have a common language about what we mean by those and why those things are important and why we embrace them.
I find it very difficult to answer that.
Yeah, these are, oftentimes, in fact, when you look at organizations, when you explore these concepts, it's when these things break down, that's when you have the disconnects. That's why this work is so insightful, again, timeless. It's extremely relevant.
Lee, we do have a hand raised from a participant.
Sure.
Val, if you're ready with your question.
Well, greetings, everyone. And it's basically a comment. Lee, thank you so much for this session. I bring you greetings as president of today's Alumni Association. And I know I'm preaching to the choir because everyone in this session is aware of just how incredible the Hesselbein program has been, not just for our local students, but students from all over the world. The impact has been incredible. And I'm so glad that Frances is with us today so that I can thank her and on the behalf of really the world. I am grateful that this is virtual. We did not let COVID stop us. And so this particular presentation was good, but I thank you for all that it has done and for the impact that it has had on the world.
Thank you so much, Val. Summer, last time I heard, I think there have been more than 1,600 people who participated in one of the summits. Is that correct? Somewhere in that range, from like 73 countries, some number.
Yes, if you give me just 2 minutes, I'll update the math real quick.
All right, I love it. I love it. That's good. Well, I'm a numbers person, so I do remember those. But speaking about the global impact that Frances's work has had, and think about all those people just going back and sharing those perspectives. That was a very good point. I mean, it's great for the students there at the University of Pittsburgh, but really, I remember being a mentor. I had 5 people in my group, and 3, I think, were from overseas, and we learned so much from them, and they brought so much wisdom to the table.
And the wisdom they take back to their countries. And periodically we'll hear from some of the participants, and it's just amazing what they are doing.
Exactly right. So I think it really behooves all of us to embrace, as you believe them, these concepts and live by them and share those with others, because these are powerful, they're transformational, and they really help our society and get better. We certainly have our challenges, but Frances has always been up for a major challenge. I think she challenges us to, take the high road and keep doing the important work. And she's never been more optimistic about the future when she talks and she spends time with students. I see why she says what she says.
Lee, I did just update the chat that we have over 900 Academy alumni from
Wow.
72 different countries, with 27 countries just represented today in our virtual summit.
That is great, Summer. Thank you. I'm going to share with you my contact information. Again, if you'd like a copy of the slides, I'd be glad to provide them to you. Just send me an email. Understand that I am a full-time grandfather practically, so I'm not as quick getting back. After this, I have to finish 2 dinosaurs that need batteries. So this is what you do once you retire, is you focus on the important things for a 1-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 6-year-old. So, but that is a joy, and again, helping them learn the importance of service. So do you see the contact there? Okay, do you have all that? Because I'm going to shift out of the share mode, and we'll go to this mode. Okay, very good. Nice to see you all this way. I get to see more people this way. Hello, Taylor. Okay, this is great.
To them, we're going to finish the conversation, so you're going to wave to them.
Am I going to write to them?
No. Can you wave to them? Wave the hand to them? Can you wave the hand to them? Goodbye.
Very good. Summer, thank you so much for being our host of the session today.
Thank you for letting me be here, be your guest. And I would just respond in every way you would like me to.
Well, it seems only profound that we end this session with the words from herself, from Frances Hesselbein. Frances, we love you. Thank you for being such an inspiration to countless people. And she thank you for your help today, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much. Love being with you.
Well, love being with you too. Summer, are we good?
We are. So that concludes our session. I will stop the recording in just a moment. Thank you, Dr. Patouillet, so much for participating in our virtual summit. I know that we have another session at 1 o'clock, so you do have a short break to be able to get what you need to transition to that session at 1 and find those Zoom links on the agenda that was sent out in advance. And just a reminder that we will be emailing a survey at the end, and your feedback is extremely important to us for future summits, both virtually and in person. We can't wait to be in person again with you all. So thank you so much. And I will give 1 minute to let the chat keep running before I end this Zoom call.
Right, very good. Hello, Adrian Garcia. How are you? Boy, that's great. Look at that. This is like old home week today. This is fun. This is
Sam,
really
how are
neat.
you?
Doing well, thank you. Good to hear from you. Look at all these dear people. That is wonderful. That is great. Okay, I'm going to bring up the contact information again, just to make sure that that is up so people can see it. That might help. Can you all see it? Hang on. I may have zapped you out.